We're going to be talking about box plots. You may have heard it as box and whiskers. They can be called either. So we're going to talk about what it looks like, how to read it, and then how to make one. They're used to kind of show the spread of the data and not necessarily all the specifics, but certain parts. So we'll talk about those parts right now. Make sure you are pulling up the Google Slides with this video and filling it in as you go. You do need to insert your work for a few of them and type in your answers, and then you'll finish the practice at the end. So here's what a box plot looks like. Usually there's going to be a number line at the bottom, but this is a good picture because it shows and talks about the parts. So the first one is the minimum. That's the smallest number in the data set. And then on the complete other end, is the maximum. So you've got the range actually in this data because you got the smallest and the highest. And then we have the median, which is the middle number. And then we have the lower quartile and upper quartile. So one thing I like to think about with these is at the median, that's your 50%, okay? So that's your halfway in between your data, okay? So that if that's 50%, the lower quartile is going to be 25%, upper quartile would be 75%, and then your maximum would be 100%. So think about 25% of your data is between your minimum and your quartile 1. Another 25% is between quartile 1 and quartile 2, and then another 25% and so forth. One other thing is this box is 50% of your data in the middle, okay? So you may have a number of a minimum and it's kind of an outlier, a number way out there by itself, but 50% of your data is right there around the median. Another thing you'll need to know is that box is called you can find the inner quartile range or the IQR. So when we think about that, think about your upper quartile minus your lower quartile, and that'll give you your interquartile range. Okay, so we'll find that in a few questions in a minute. So let's look at this graph, this number line and box plot. So the number of eggs laid. So let's say what number represents each part in the box plot. So the median, remember that's going to be your middle number. So you just bring it straight down, is going to be 6, median. The lower quartile is going to be right here. So we have 2 and we have 4, so halfway between is going to be 3. Upper quartile is going to be 8. The minimum is going to be 2, and the maximum would be 10. I'm going to go ahead and add in here for interquartile range is going to be 8 minus 3, which is 5. So that's the range of the middle part of your data. You could find the range of all the data, which would be 8, but the interquartile range is 5. Make sure you're filling these answers in on slide 3 on the Google Slides that were attached to the assignment. One other thing you're going to need to know is how to analyze them and compare them. So we've got 3 films, A, B, and C. The title says the age of the film viewer in years. So we're going to compare them. So which film had the highest median range? Well, remember the medians are right here. So which one had the highest median was film A. Which one had the smallest range? So remember, range is your highest minus your lowest. So which one is has the minimum and the maximum closest together? Would be film C, because this is the closest together, the smallest range. The next one had the lower extreme of about 18. So look, we can do lower extreme. Sometimes they'll call it lower extreme or minimum or maximum or upper extreme. So either one. So this one has lower extreme of about 18 is also going to be film C. So let's talk about the last one. It says, write a sentence about this statement. Film A has the most viewers. Well, let's look at it. It does have the highest median. It does have the highest range, but how do we know how many numbers are in between? Because really, 25% is between each section. right? So they might be the oldest viewers, but it may not necessarily be the most. So write that in a sentence. I would probably say film A, or we don't necessarily know if film A has the most viewers based on this box plot because we don't know how many numbers are in between each section, and we don't know how many numbers there are total for each different film. Because film C could have the same number of people, it just was a smaller age range of people that were watching that film, and film A was more spread out. So we don't know necessarily that it had the most, but it did have the biggest range of ages for viewers. So make sure you put that into a complete sentence and add that for the last one. This slide, we're talking about the percentage between each section. So the biggest thing I like to think about is between your minimum and your quartile 1 is 25%. Between your quartile 1 and your medians, another 25. Median to quartile 3 is another 25, and then the maximum is another 25. Because think about it as the whole thing is 100%, and you're dividing it into quarters or 4 sections. Also, think about at the median, below that's going to be 50% and above that's going to be 50%. In addition, think about in your interquartile range, which is your lower quartile to your upper quartile, is going to be where 50% of your data is. Okay, so that's huge. 50% of your data is between your 2 quartiles. So let's answer some questions on the next slide regarding some of the percentages. So the first question says, let's get a different colored pen, says what percent of students are between 3 and 7? So here is 3 and here is 7. So that is going to be 25% of our data, just because it's between those 2 numbers, 25% of the data. What percent of students are between 10 and 18? So 10 and 18, that's going to be 2 sections. So each are going to be 25%. So it's going to be a total of 50%. What percent of students are between 7 and 13? Ooh, that's our interquartile range. Okay. So again, that's 2 sections. So again, 50%. So here in this next part, we're going to be talking about giving some specific numbers to see if we can, which helps us to then predict how many we're talking about. So it says there's 5 students between 3 and 7. So if there's 5 students between 3 and 7, that's 25%, okay? But that also means there's 5 here, and 5 here, because they're all going to be the same. So how many are between 7 and 13? So that's 2 sections of 25, so that's going to be 10 students. Okay, here's another question with some different numbers. Let me erase this real quick. It says if there's a total of 14 students between the 3 sections, 14 students in each section between a total of 14 students all together. Okay, and then how many do we have between 13 and 18? Well, think about it. If there's 14 total, we're actually going to change that number to 16. It should say 16 on your slides. So think about if it's 16 total, 4 in each section, right? So that's 4, 4, 4, and 4. Sorry about the dog. 16 divided by 4 sections is 4 in each one. How many are between 13 and 18 is going to be 4 students. Go ahead and fill in the rest of your slides.